fancy intro music. Yeah! Woohoo!
Welcome in, Star Trek Fleet Commanders. Today, I want to take a look at artifacts and sourcing all of the artifacts that are currently sourceable in the game. I actually updated the spreadsheet this morning. Shout out to Jules who helped me with it and also does a lot of the background stuff. We always love to shout out the folks putting in the hard work behind the scenes. So shout out to Jules. But today I want to talk about artifacts. There's 3 different types, where to source them, how to source them, and what all does that look like. So here are artifacts in general. So this is my level 60 account, and of all of my accounts, this is actually the one with the most artifact usage. And as you can see, there's different types, or in fact, 3 different types of artifacts in the game. Regular artifacts, isolytic artifacts, and temporal artifacts. In fact, if you remember on this screen, you can see this little temporal exchange here, which a lot of people go after. So let's talk about sourcing of these and why some people have favorites of certain formation armadas. For example, many of you who've watched my live streams or played in my alliance with me know that I love the 45s, the uncommon 45s. Why do I love those? Well, because they give you rare artifacts that, for me, are some of the best, which are whole health boosters. They have mitigation boosting uncommons in terms of like those formation armadas drop those. And as you can see on this chart, handy dandy. It's good to be able to see where you can go. Now, the difference is with the original artifacts, the regulars, you can't get the epics in the actual formation armadas, but you can get them in these pulls, as in like the pulls that you see behind me, the restorations right there. So that's how you would get the Scepter of the Grand Nagus, the Katinga scale replica, etc. There are other ways to get that. So if you look at the very end of this map, you'll see the Katinga scale replica can actually be obtained in the Augment faction as well. That was part of me doing the updates this morning, was to give you all the access and all the levels of where things are. So this one covers all of the uncommon formation armadas and the regular formation armadas. But let's back out real quick. Boom, changing screens, and we're gonna take a look at where these are, because I do think it's important to show y'all. So you can see I have my Rotaran just sitting at the 45s that I know and love, but those are all located in this part of space. I'm gonna zoom all the way out so you can see. So basically go to Federation space and head due north, and you're gonna find these here. And just scroll in, they will go by different levels. And honestly, if you see the ones that are like back to back, as in like the 50s, the 35s, that's where you're gonna see those formation armadas. These are the original formation armadas that first rolled out. Again, they do still serve a purpose if you're trying to go after something specific, especially on those newer servers. Things like the 45 are really, focus people on to get those really valuable artifacts. But all of them will pay out different artifacts, as you can see on the chart. Put that up back here for just a quick second. But keep in mind and remember that this is something that is older content. So you look at what you can get in the long run. Krenim Formations are actually going to help pay out a lot of this, but let's move on to the isolytic one. So rotate onto the screen, isolytic, and in the background, I'm going to change where I'm at, so be warned. Yeah, but isolytic is going to be your next set. This is set 2 that came out, and these are the rare formation armadas. These are a little bit stronger than the regular uncommons, but look what you can get here in terms of in the formation armada. So if you're doing the 60 rares, those are gonna be your ISO damage against explorers, against interceptors, against battleships. Your ISO defenses are in the 51s and the 56 rares. And then when you look at the 41 rares, you get the generic ISO damage against players. That's the Narada Tendril. Now, if you look also down here, you'll see other ways to get these, including the Voyager Refinery can get some of these, and the actual ISO matter pulls. So again, pay attention to the chart right there. But lots of good things here that I really, really like. You don't see them getting sourced in things like the Eviscerator or the Augment or Section 31, but look specifically in things like the Voyager Refinery and the Xindi Armadas, and you can find some of these. And a lot of powerful ones, all built around ISO. The rares are quite critical for that. Also want to pay attention that if you notice in the actual artifact section, that they're in the ISO path. So again, if you're looking to improve the number of ISO ones that you've unlocked, particularly like the 41 rares, as well as the 60 rares for those damage boosters, and the ISO defense can be quite nice. Now we have this is a lot with this one. So on the screen, you can see here are our rares, and they're all in this green like nebula of space. But last and certainly not least, if anything, maybe the most important, we have the formation armadas that are Krenim based. Now, these are something that you're usually going to need and want to have a relativity to pull off, but there is a distinct advantage to going after these. Let's start talking about what you're getting first with these. So, number one, there are a lot of temporal artifacts, and I mean a lot. It should be pointed out that there are a lot of these that you can get via not even doing this loop, as in you can get them Cindy Armadas. You can get some of these in the Section 31 faction store, right? And we're just looking at the uncommons and the rares right now. Sourcing of some of them is still pay only though. Shockingly, we have 7 of these, I believe, that are still pay only, but not necessarily that good anyway, so I don't really feel like many people are missing out. Would we always like them to be there? Yes. In fact, I'm a big advocate for everything in the game should be free to play, and I think most of you would agree with that. But as you can see here on the chart, you're not necessarily missing anything too big or crazy with those rares, and you can see how they are sourced there. But let's move on to the epics. We got to rotate the screen again because there's so many of them. Again, here we are. So we've got multiples of these being sourced in the DTI faction, the Section 31 faction, and the Augment faction. And that's kind of your primary place to focus on these. And some of these that I really want to point you to, like the Glavin artifact, one that has been pay only for a long time, now has a free-to-play source. That is a lot of ISO damage that can be added into all of your ships. You've also got the Book of Kostamogen, which is one that you can max out yourself using the Temporal artifact system and the remnants, etc. But still nice to have. That's going to give you a whole health booster. Now, I don't want to just stop on those. So, for example, the Section 31 is going to give you more ISO defense when any state is applied if you're picking up the DTI temporal device or Anorax's data pad. And then you also look at the Strand and Krenim hair, which you've noticed me pulling, which is going to give you more ISO damage if the opponent has any state applied as well. So you have a couple different things here between Apex Barrier and between ISO that we want to continue to try to boost because those are currently some of the strongest mechanics in the game. Now, as far as where these are at, well, we can pop it up here on the screen. And as you can see, they're just right there in the background. Any of these are going to be part of the system. Now, these are a little bit different. I want to show them and remind you, regular formation armadas, you would use regular armada crews. With the Krenim formation armadas, you want to have a relativity in each leg. So you have an anti-charged ability there and an anti-static ability there. And then sadly, the third leg, the neutral, just doesn't really pay out as much. But you're getting currency that's going to help you with the wreckage. Not to mention the boxes have a fantastic payout that drastically speeds up these other loops. So what I mean is the boxes you can earn from doing the Krenim Formation Armadas is going to then give you more pulls of these right here. The Premium Artifact Restoration, which is, as you can see, loaded with a lot of the classics that you do still want to get, including the Hypo Spray that I was talking about. I like those for the shield health. You know, the Chapel's Hypo Spray. You have Crusher's Hypo Spray, which is shield health. You have whole health ones. These are all very, very valuable. McCoy's Hypo Spray, which is a whole health for battleships. Very, very much in favor of everybody picking these up. Then you also have the Isolytic premium, if you will, right here, like the Narinda fragments that we were talking about earlier, and including the Borg Queen's Remains. Any of these can be very, very beneficial to you. And then certainly last but not least, we have the temporal restorations themselves, where we talk about things like Nero's Trident being incredibly valuable to the average player in the game right now, especially as you're getting up into G5 and G6. Maxing out those officer stats can be quite good. The Stone of Memory doesn't have as much value as it used to. In fact, I used to really praise the Stone of Memory being quite valuable. It's a little bit lower there, but Eye of Ra still incredibly good. As you can see, all of these, you want to try to end up sourcing long-term. Eventually, everything has value, and even this right here, increasing base damage versus hostiles, can benefit you. Some people have described this maxed out as kind of like having Lorca's Fist turned on at all times. So you have a lot of value in the artifact system. And even though not everything has sourcing so far, there's a lot of things that do, giving you the opportunity to prepare for. As you can see, I'm already preparing for Amelia Earhart's plane, which is to reduce my cost for G6 items. And that's going to be big for me, making those ships easier and cheaper to go through and obtain, removing some of that problematic time and problematic pain that seems to be so common in this game these days. Other things, again, like the Kashara artifact, you can get in Alliance tournaments. So all of the sourcings now provided to you live long and plunder, stay safe with those Space Cowboys. Deuces, that's me. Like the video if you haven't already. Greatly appreciate you being here, supporting me and my family, and we'll see you on the next one.
An even better outro than the intro. For the Empire and glory to your house.